Freddie, thank you for joining us on Spectator TV.
Great pleasure, John.
I was saying, I think it seems a bit like deja vu at the moment. We're back again talking about Trump facing criminal charges. But what are the latest indictments and what is he facing?
It is a little bit like Trump Groundhog Day, isn't it? Well, the latest relate to January 6th and Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who's hounding Trump on all sorts of fronts, has brought 4 charges against Donald Trump. The main one is a conspiracy to defraud the United States, and alongside that, a conspiracy to defraud the right to vote of every American citizen. And that relates to, of course, Donald Trump's great tantrum after the 2020 election and the way in which, according to a lot of people, he encouraged and incited the riot of January 6th, which is now infamous. There are no insurrection charges, which is quite sort of important, because probably the only way in which he could be debarred from running from office would be if he had been found guilty of insurrection. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not a realistic possibility. So you have this situation now where Trump is facing 78 counts, criminal counts against him, and the civil trial, which is the rape case in New York, which seems quite spurious to a lot of people, but it's still ongoing. And he is still far, far ahead in the polls to be the Republican nominee. It's not just Trumpists who rally around him, because they've already rallied around him. It's actually quite a lot of Republican-leaning Republican people who do feel this is a politicization of justice, who do feel that Donald Trump has a point. And when they're asked about it in polls, they tend to support him more after one of these indictments comes out.
Well, you mentioned he's being hounded by Jack Smith. I mean, do you think they're right to think that at least some of this is politically motivated, the charges against him? Or
well, it's funny with Trump. I always think that what I think doesn't really matter, because I think, if you want to know what I think the worst thing Donald Trump did as president was to refuse to accept the result of the 2020 election. I mean, Richard Nixon in the 1960s thought that he had been robbed of the election by JFK, and he actually had quite good reason to think that. But he accepted the results, and I think it's an important part of the democratic process. Even if it is a little bit dodgy, it's not totally compromised, and you should accept the result of it. The fact that Donald Trump didn't was a bad thing. He behaved recklessly. He did encourage people to think very conspiratorial thoughts, and he did undermine the democratic process. I think Americans and Brits, when we talk about America, can get a little bit pompous about process. We don't have to all believe election results. That's not some sort of divine order that we have to accept them. The fact is, Democrats have repeatedly refused to accept election results when Republicans win. They didn't accept Donald Trump winning. They didn't accept George W. Bush winning. It's slightly pompous, all that talk, I think. So I'd try and get away from that, and then maybe look at whether these criminal indictments have any value. I think in this particular case, while Trump no doubt behaved badly, recklessly, as I said, what the indictment needs to prove is what it claims, which is that Trump willfully, knowing that he was spreading lies about the election, tried to claim that it was stolen. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I don't understand Trump's brain. Nobody does. But the fact is, I think Trump believes the election was dodgy, and therefore the fact that he still does means that you can't really accuse him of willfully engaging in a conspiracy.
I mean, do you get the sense that this could all very much backfire for Trump's enemies, in the sense that if he gets off these particular criminal charges, he will certainly see that as a vindication of his actions on January 6th?
It's very hard to say. I mean, given the number of charges in these indictments, it's possible that he will go down for one. Will he go down in time for the election? That's a difficult question to answer. If he does and runs from prison, could he run a successful campaign? Constitutionally, he could. You can run from behind bars. Eugene Debs did it in the 1920s. Right. He won 1 million votes. So all sorts of imponderables are going on here.
What do you think is going through some Democrats' minds when they look at this? Would they like a Trump-Biden contest with Trump facing criminal charges, or do you think they're sort of wary as well about how these charges are perhaps making Trump into sort of a martyr for certain sections of America.
I think there are mixed thoughts going on in the minds of Democrats and Democratic strategists. I think at one level they think, yes, Trump as the nominee is good for us because that drives out the anti-Trump vote, which is huge. And there's no point underestimating that. It's a very significant thing. At the same time, they'll be looking at the polls. If you look at polls comparing DeSantis against Biden with Trump against Biden, Trump actually fares a little bit better.
Right.
So it's possible that in the run of an election campaign, DeSantis, as a more normal politician without all these criminal indictments hanging over him, would fare better. But that's a difficult judgment call. So I think I remember Megyn Kelly saying to me on Spectator TV in answer to this question, be careful what you wish for. And that's what I'd say to Democratic strategists who think Trump is the ideal nominee. If the economy goes bad, latest indications are that the American economy is actually going quite well. But if the economy turns bad and you have Trump versus Biden, there's a very significant chance, as Neil Ferguson said in the Spectator cover piece recently, that Trump will win and become president again.
He sort of reminded of Democrats willing Trump to get the Republican nomination the first time round, actually, and it all coming collapsing down because they originally thought he'd be a better opponent.
Well, that's a very good point. The interesting thing is this a repeat of 2016? And I don't think it is in many ways, because I think the atmosphere is different. Because Trump in 2016 was mind-blowing. I mean, he still is in many ways, but it was all so new, and it excited a lot of people and got people interested in politics who weren't interested, and drove out lots of people who don't normally vote. In 2024, yes, Trump's movement is much bigger, but are independents and moderates as interested in the kind of Trump, the justice system is against me rhetoric? I think that's a question that's yet to be answered.
And you mentioned one of Trump's opponents in the Republican race, Mike Pence, who's come out against Trump now and is sort of revealing his memos from his time in the White House. Am I right to say his other Republican candidates, opponents, haven't made much hay of his criminal convictions? And do you think that's a mistake, that they're not making more political capital out of it?
I don't think so, no, because I think politics is tribal in America now. And I think that Pence, I'm not quite sure what his strategy is. It seems like he's cooperating with the Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. And he will probably give some sort of statement in the trial, maybe witness in the trial, and say, recount, or he'll have notes of what his conversations with Trump at the time. And the prosecution and Pence will try to paint Mike Pence as vice president as a sort of honourable man, being put under pressure by this demonic force that's Donald Trump. I don't think that's going to convince a lot of people. Mike Pence sucked up to Donald Trump for 4 years, in the most oleaginous manner possible. And now he wants to be president, but he's on 3% in the polls. I don't quite get what he's thinking as to whether this will flip the script for him, because Trump's support is around 35 to 40% of the party now, or people that vote Republican. That's not going to change. There's nothing that seems to be shifting that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Freddy.
Great pleasure.